Hello, welcome. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'll just leave it run a few more seconds as people are joining the webinar this morning. So yeah, welcome everyone. Said I'll just give it a few more seconds before we get going with this morning's webinar. Okay, I see it's starting to settle. So with the interest of time, I'll get us going for this morning. So yeah, hello everyone and welcome to today's CMC Prosci webinar on project management and change management. I'm Rhys Tompkins. I'll be leading the engagement in today's webinar. Also, a warm welcome to those who are joining us from Nexum this morning, those who've been invited to the webinar from Nexum. We're pleased to have you with us today for the first time, or for second time now, I think it is, second or third time actually, since we came together as two organisations with Nexum in November last year. So thanks to you all for continuing to join us on these webinars. Please note, although this webinar is scheduled for an hour, it could run over depending on the extent of interaction and questions that we receive. The webinar slides will be available in the chat pane. I'll pop those into the chat pane for you in a few moments' time. If you can't see them show up in your chat pane, don't worry, you will also receive an email next week where I'll include a link to the slides. So that'll be early next week. So if you can't see them in the chat pane, don't worry, you will receive them at some point. In today's webinar, we will also be running some polls that will appear on screen for you to answer. So if you want to get involved, open up a separate browser window and go to pollev.com/CMC Global, and you'll be ready for our first poll, which will be in a few minutes' time. I'll also pop that link into the chat for you as well, but you can also see it on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. This webinar is fully interactive, so do feel free to ask any questions in the chat or the Q&A pane. I would recommend using the Q&A pane, as this would allow you to, if you would like to remain anonymous, you can tick a little checkbox there on the Q&A pane that ensures that you remain anonymous. If you're not too worried about that, you can use the chat pane or the Q&A pane to ask any questions or make any comments. It's totally up to you. So if you are new to us, we're CMC Partnership Global, and for more than 20 years, we've been helping individuals and organizations to develop their change skills. Our vision is change for good together, helping you to accelerate delivery, adoption, and usage of new ways of working. CMC is the sole provider of process change management training conducted in person and virtually across the UK, Ireland, Italy, and Singapore. We also have offices in South Africa and Switzerland, where we offer private training, which can also be facilitated globally at a venue of your choice. Since April 5th, CMC and Nexum, who came together as organizations at the back end of last year, have become part of the Prosci family and soon will become Prosci Europe. During our future sessions, we'll share more information about this. But in the meantime, if you head to our website, you will be able to find some more information there. But if you have any questions about that, then also do feel free to get in touch with us. Either way, our primary objective is remaining the same, so no need to worry about that. It's to enable you to manage and build your own change capability within your organization. So for more information regarding our CMC Global and Process Services, either chat in or get in touch via inquiry@cmcpartnership.com, or you may find it easier just to head to cmcpartnership.com to see all our range of services there. If you're coming from Nexum this morning, you can head to their website, nexum.eu. If you'd like to find out more about Nexum's solutions, you can head there as well. If you'd like to know more about how we can work directly with your organization and your various options, again, either chat into myself and I'll put you in touch with one of my colleagues, or get in touch again at inquiry@cmcpartnership.com. So getting to this morning's webinar, our first instructor today is Kerry Williams. Kerry is an accomplished Prince 2 and Prosci change management practitioner who has delivered a diverse range of change projects across both private and public sectors, predominantly within the areas of IT, education, e-procurement, business change. Kerry is a Prosci certified advanced instructor delivering change management programs within the UK and internationally. Our second presenter today is Imogen Parnham-Kenny. Imogen is also a Prosci advanced instructor at CMC Global. Imogen delivers our Prosci training courses and works on building change capability for a range of organizations. So with that, I'll hand over to Kerry to take you through the first part of this morning's webinar.
Good morning, everyone. Just let me share my screen. It's always the most difficult. Excellent. So good morning and happy Friday. Thanks for joining us this morning. So our agenda today, we're going to look at the integration of project management and change management. We're going to talk about why we should integrate and the benefits of integration. So I'm going to take you through the first section this morning and set some context and foundation, the background for actually doing change management then. Halfway through, I'm going to hand over to Imogen, and she's going to talk you through the dimensions of integrating change management and project management. As Reece said, please use the chat pane or the Q&A pane if you've got any questions. Suggest I'll pick up questions for the end of my section when we get to it then. So, project management, change management, we are two complementary disciplines. We are stronger together, a great example of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts then. I predominantly practice in the area of change management at the moment, but I always say I never want to do change management without that project management integration then. So let me go forward. So this is a slide many of you might have seen before, and it's something that I commonly pull out to talk to people about the unified value of change management, project management integrated. It's a very busy slide, but let me talk you through it. As an input to the change process, we need a clearly defined reason for change. Whatever that is, we should be really clear. We should have metrics and measures against that. So that's the input to our three states of change. The current, transition, and future is what we use in Prosci. You'll notice the lines between these states are blurred because that's what they are in real life. We don't live in neat little boxes. So in order to give our organizations, our projects, the best possible chance of success, we need both the technical side and the people side of change. It's important to point out here by the technical side of change, we're not necessarily talking about technological change. We are talking about that part of the organization that is focused in on designing, developing, and delivering a solution for the organization. Commonly, we call this the project management discipline. The other side of the equation, we also need the people side of change, working with this technical side. And our focus is getting people to engage with, adopt, and use that great solution that the project team have designed, developed, and delivered then. As I said, you know, I always, from the people side of change, I always want to work with that technical side then. We're like two strands of a rope. We're quite strong on our own, but put us together and we're much stronger again. So it doesn't really matter whether you are doing a sequential change, a traditional waterfall approach to change then, or whether you're using an agile or iterative approach then. It's still providing that people focus over and above however you're delivering the technical side of the change, gives us the best possible chance of success. Now, the whole premise behind change management or change is a process. We just don't jump from the current to the future state then. We have that transition in the middle. And when we talk about current transition and future state, it's important to remember that we could be talking about thousands of individual current states, thousands of people working sometimes in a way that they're really comfortable with, that they know how to be successful, that they know how to deliver and do their jobs in. It's always going to be challenging to help people move towards that future state then. But what we find, if we're just doing great technical project delivery, we start to lose people in the transition phase. And this looks like people who don't turn up to meetings, don't turn up to training sessions, either physically or mentally opting out of the change. And we end up with a future state that isn't like what we envisaged. We haven't brought everybody through to that then. I've got a poll for you now. I'd like to ask you a question. What are some of the consequences you've seen when adoption and usage aren't what they're expected? So we might have delivered on the project side, might have delivered a perfect technical solution, but what happens when people don't adopt and use the change? So if you come over to Poll Everywhere, either on your smartphones or on another browser, confidence and commitment to change is undermined. People tend to revert back to their habitual processes. Absolutely, particularly when they're comfortable with those habitual processes. Any other thoughts there? Not engage, resist the change, yeah. Need for a repeat of the implementation. The most expensive word in the dictionary is retraining, relaunching, disengagement, absenteeism, leavers, yep. Criticizing, absolutely. Picking holes with in the solution. People who revert back, yeah. There's no change, only frustration and resistance. People can't see the benefit, yep, so they stay as they are. Project is seen as a failure. This is really key for me. I've seen a number of projects where actually the technical side has been delivered really well, but because that adoption and usage isn't in place, the project team carry the blame for that. Don't see the full benefit, not adapting to new ways of working. Sounds like everybody's seen a bit of this. Benefits not sustained, slip backwards, absolutely. Reputation damage and customer frustration, nothing changes, absolutely. Disruption in the future state. Brilliant, thank you very much for those. As I said, it's like a problem shared, isn't it? So we've got a problem when we're, a challenge rather than a problem, when we're introducing the change. And it doesn't matter what sort of change that we're implementing, whether it is something like a move to cloud services, whether it is a move of location, whether it's a behavioral change, then we need that well-defined change as an input to the process. The adoption challenge we're going to have a look at is, what do people need to do differently then in order that we can actually achieve that change? We're also going to look at how we're going to support people through that adoption challenge, how we're going to equip them, how we're going to prepare them for that change. I've seen this on countless projects where we're talking about something like the implementation of a new system, SAP, CRM, whatever it is. And I hear this sort of, well, it's only going to have a small effect or a medium effect on your job. People underestimating the impact or not having a clear vision of what that impact is. It's really difficult to sort of get your head around what's changing for you as an individual when you have such a nebulous statement as a medium impact on your job. So what we're going to have a look at now is an assessment that we do within Prosci to help us really get into the granular level of what is changing for people, so that we can bring the change into focus, both for our leaders, for our senior managers, for our senior leaders, but also for those people who are going to be impacted, who are going to need to adopt and use the change in order for us to be successful. So again, some of you might have seen this assessment before, but what we've identified in Prosci are 10 aspects of someone's job that could be impacted by a change. Now, the idea is that we assess groups of people who are impacted by the change. We assess them against each of these 10 aspects. We start with processes. Is the way that they're delivering their standard product, their output, is that impacted by this change? We have a look at the systems that they're using. What's the impact on them? We think about the tools, the technical tools, the hardware, whatever those tools are, thinking about whether there's a change to those. We're thinking about job roles. Are they going to gain new responsibility? Is that job role going to change? The most challenging of the aspects that we come across are mindsets, attitudes, and beliefs, and critical behavior change. They are really closely linked in terms of aspects then. Very often, in order to change your critical behaviors, you have to make a mindset shift. You have to change your attitude or your belief around something before you can react with your critical behaviors. We're thinking about, is there going to be any change in reporting structure? So are we merging teams? Are we getting new management in there? Are people's performance reviews impacted by this change? Is the compensation, their salaries, their bonuses, their non-cashable remuneration, are they impacted by this change? And also their location. So the idea is, as I said, that you can break your impacted population down and assess each of those impacted populations against these 10 aspects. We score this on a 0 to 5 scale for each of those impacts. And what we end up with when we carry this out on all of our impacted groups, it gives us a really nice picture of, okay, which of the groups are more highly impacted? Which are the groups that are going to need more support? So we end up with sort of color wheels, as you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. The thing I always say, though, is really dig into this. I never carry this assessment out on my own. I always involve project managers. I involve subject matter experts, business owners from the area in which we're landing this change. So once we've done this initial part of the assessment, the next thing that we do a bit of a narrative, build a narrative around this assessment. So everywhere that we've scored a 1 to a 5, then we're going to think about, okay, what does that look like at the moment, yesterday, before the change, the as is, if you like. And we think about articulating what's it going to look like in that future state. What this gives us is the opportunity to build a really clear narrative so that we can better explain to senior leaders what the impact of this change is. But it also helps us make the change clearer for those people who are impacted by change, help them get that vision of what the future state looks like for them. So if we look at project challenges versus adoption challenges, there's some really nice examples here. If I just talk through the first one, the project might be installing whiteboards at patient bedsides in hospitals, putting them in the right position, making sure that they work, making sure that they're sourced from the right place at the right time then. Our adoption challenge that we focus in on in change management is, how do we improve the two-way communication in hospitals between the patient, families, and care providers, using those whiteboards as our tool then? So some really nice examples there. But I love this slide. I see this time and time again. We do the project management side really, really well. We have detailed plans. We've thought through every eventuality. We've got great project managers who are monitoring the rollout of this technical solution. And then all of a sudden, we've got this bit, okay, we go live, and now everybody will just adopt it just because they have the great solutions that we deliver. It's really not that simple, as many of us know. So in order to help our individuals actually adopt and use this change, we use ADKAR to help people shift from their current mindsets, that transactional mindset, to actually, how am I going to use this technical solution with our customers? How am I going to use it as part of my day job? So ADCAR, just to give you a very basic introduction or reminder, 5 elements, 5 milestones of change that we all go through as individuals to help us land that successful change, to take us from the current state to the future state. We need awareness in place. People need to know why we're changing now, and what are the consequences of not changing. Desire. People need to make the decision to participate and support the change. In order to do that, they need to understand why we're changing, but they also need to understand, okay, what's in it for me? Why should I decide to participate in this change? Knowledge. They need the skills. What do they need to be able to do in order to be able to make that change successfully? What we're doing in change management is really focusing in on actually just after that training, how are we going to make sure that people feel confident and competent in terms of working in that new way, so that when we go live with the technical side of the change, our people are prepared for it. They can say, I'm able to participate in this change. I know what I'm doing. And we know that if we get people to that competent, confident stage where they know what they're doing, they're proficient in what they're doing, we are far more likely to stay in that new state, to reinforce the change. I'm less likely rather to slip back to old ways of working if I'm feeling confident then. I love this quote. So this comes from Graham, one of our Prosci colleagues in Canada. Project management prepares the solution for the organization. Change management prepares the organization for the solution. We really should be partnering, be best friends, delivering together on this. Some of the research findings, contributors to success, for example, you can see there, project management integrating that project management, change management with the project management, running side by side, integrating truly. 2 years, the last 2 years between the 10th and the 11th studies, then some of the trends that we've seen people wake up to this idea that we need to improve how we integrate, how we work together. And there's also some indicators that what we're looking at more and more, and we've certainly seen this through the sort of COVID period then, a better focus on actually integrating change with project management. So, big surprise here, projects that integrated with change management had higher success rates. Where we don't integrate, then yeah, we're not seeing that level of success there. So again, to flip this, the projects are more successful when we integrate change management, but actually change management is more effective when it's integrated with the project side of things. So some advice on how to integrate change management and project management. Again, this is coming from the 11th edition of the research. Use a structured plan, have that intentional approach. Communicate really clear, frequent, explicit, data-driven communications. Build that relationship. We are best friends. We're on the same team. Change management and project management have exactly the same goal, exactly the same line in the sand. The benefits of change management. Change management return on investment, capturing that people-dependent portion of what we're expecting to achieve. Imogen's going to talk to you a little bit more about this, but it's not separate from the project ROI. It's part of the project ROI. I feel really passionate, and I always say, you know, when it comes to education, I want my change management teams to understand what the project management team do, understand their methodology, how are they delivering that technical side. But also, I want to sit down with project managers, project teams, and talk to them about change management. How are we going to work together? How are we going to really help them land that successful change? Sponsorship, secure sponsorship, active and visible sponsorship of change and change management then is the key success factor. But we also need our sponsors on board to sponsor this integration between project management and change management. So before I hand over to Imogen to talk to you about the dimensions of change management, Reese, have we got any questions in there?
No questions as of yet, but yeah, if anyone does have any questions or comments throughout today's webinar, yeah, just pop those into the chat or open up your Q&A pane. And yeah, when we either stop for a poll or as we switch over, then yeah, we'll get those answered for you.
Excellent. So Imogen, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Kerry, would you mind taking down your slides? I can't share while you're sharing, so thank you very much. I will. There we go. Is that sharing okay? Just to check it.
Yeah, I can see it perfectly.
Excellent. So yeah, now we're going to take that shift into the dimensions of integration. So we've taken a look at those foundations of integration. We've considered the project challenges and the adoption challenges, that defining change impact is going to enable us to do what change management is here for. But it is essential in integrating change management and project management and how our projects come to life too. So now we're going to take a look at the ways that we can actually integrate. So there are 4 different dimensions of integration: integrating around results, the why we do what we do, integrating around people, the who does the work, integrating around processes, the how we do the work, and integrating around tools, the what we use to move change efforts forwards. In terms of frequency of integration, according to the research, people is the most frequently integrated at nearly 90%. Just over 3/4 integrate around processes, 55% integrate around results, and 51% integrated around tools. So we're going to take a look at each of these dimensions of integration and see what it means to the work we do. But before we do that, we've got a couple of polls for you. So I'm intrigued to understand which dimensions of integration are strengths for your work today. So going back into pollev.com/CMC Global, and we're looking for which dimensions of integration are strengths for your work today. Looks as though people is leading there. Oh my God, got nothing on results, which I find really fascinating. So interested to see the results to our next poll as well, because we're going to be looking at the flip side of this. So it looks as though we've settled out a little bit. So majority of you really saying, 67% saying people dimension is the strength around your work today, with some strengths around processes and tools. And a main strength coming to that people dimension, which is correlating pretty much with what we're seeing in the research as well. So moving on to our next poll, so flip side, which dimensions of integration are opportunities for your work today? So where do you see the biggest opportunity out of these 4 dimensions that we're going to be taking a look at? I'm finding this very interesting. So we're saying that by the looks of it, we're strong in the work that we do with people, but actually that we see more opportunity to integrate on the people front as well. But we're also seeing some strength there around, or opportunities there around integrating over results. Thank you very much for taking part in that poll. So we're going to start off with results. aligning around results previously trailed in the unified value proposition we looked at earlier. We've got that reason for change. Why are we doing this in the first place? And then that success, what we achieve if we complete what we set out to do. They're both elements of change management and project management that we should be aiming towards. In our methodology, we define success in a more granular way, that there are both project objectives. Actually, let me build out this slide. There we go, got the full build. So we've got project objectives, what the project set out to achieve or produce or deliver, and the organisational benefits, what the organisation realises if the project effectively delivers what it set out to do, what it set out to deliver. Change management and project management both play a role in our achievement of the objectives and the benefits in times of change. This is that alignment. There is a singular flag on the horizon, which is reducing defects or capturing more market share or increasing the integrity of data upon which decisions are made, or effectively communicating status. Whatever the flag is on the horizon, that's what we should be aiming towards. Both change management and project management should share that definition of success. We also align on results in the PCT assessment. So you'll see here, whilst the PCT is a triangle, it has taken on this pyramid effect now that Prosci has added on or included that definition of success at the centre. So both project management and change management align and aim towards improving the success rates and improving the outcomes of this change in the organisation. They're integrated in their approach, and that's what you see as the extension on the right-hand side of the slide. It's through our people, processes and tools that we can integrate our approach, but we're also integrated in our aspiration or end goal, which is delivering success for the organisation. So one of the ways that we've done this in change management is by showing that project ROI, or project return on investment, and change return on investment aren't separate things. Change management is here to help us deliver and capture the people-dependent portion of the project return on investment. So conceptually, we have two scenarios on screen. One is installing motion-activated lights in the meeting room, and the other is installing recycling and compost bins in the office. One of these has a much higher dependence on adoption and usage than the other. So the one on the left, installing the motion activated lights, is a little more of an automated solution, and the individuals who use it, possibly with the exception of the people who coded, programmed and installed it, will just need to walk into the room and back out of the room to be able to use it. It's not dependent on that person showing up in a new way or how they engage or interact with the room to get the benefit. On the right-hand side, though, it's almost completely dependent on adoption and usage. Certainly, there is that technical side to the solution, getting the bins in the right place, proper signage, communication instructions. But in the end, it's the individual and whether they decide to throw that banana peel in the main bin or into the compost bin. It's then the individual who's emptying the bins, that they know where they're putting the rubbish afterwards. That is the element where we're seeing that adoption and usage being critical to the success of that project. So this is something you might want to consider in relation to your own projects or to aspects of your own projects. How people dependent is that return on investment? I've got another poll for you, so back into polyv.com/CMC Global. I'm hoping that this one will load for you. So for a project you're working on right now, what do you think is the percentage overall results and outcomes dependent on employee adoption and usage of the change?
Yeah, I've had some questions come through, Imogen. Sal and Kerry, you want to
Sure.
answer some while the polls
Yeah,
loading? Yep.
absolutely.
So yeah, we've got 3 in the chat, so we'll see what we get through. But yeah, we can come back to some if we need to. So what to do when leaders are resistant and there is politics, where they are not open to have a dialogue to see the value of educating people with what's in it for me approach?
I'm happy to take that one.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. And I think where you've got individuals, senior leaders who are basically not focusing in on the people side, then the best thing that you can do to get them on board is make it real. Think about projects in the organization that haven't achieved what they set out to, if you can give examples of where you've had to go back and actually relaunch projects or retrain people, and if you can pull some of the costs into that, it's getting away from this idea that, as Imogen said, you know, the project side return on investment and the people side return on investment are unconnected. They're not. So any examples I would recommend. Can I take the next one as well, Reece? Do you mind?
Yep. So how do you work when project management and change management are the same people without blurring the lines too much?
Without blurring the lines and without your own head exploding, if that's you. Yeah, it's really challenging. So a lot of organizations starting out in change management think, yeah, we'll get the project manager to do that as well. Great project managers seldom have time on their hands. Part of the challenge for the individual is that actually project management will always take priority over change management when it's one and the same resource. Then we're focused even these days on delivering on time, within budget, quality. So it can be done, but it's really, really challenging then. So I'll be quiet now, Imogen.
Have we got one more, Reece?
Yeah, got time. Yeah. So yeah, business is very focused on financial returns of the projects. So will that be results dimension?
Yeah, I think so. I don't care if you agree.
Definitely, yeah. It's financial returns are linked to the people side, and that's, yeah, definitely results.
Yeah. Fab, thank you. And thank you to those of you that took part in the poll. I was keeping an eye on it as it was ticking through in the background. Looks as though we have a lot of people that are joining us today that are sitting there with a high dependence on employee adoption and usage of the change. So you're in the right place to be talking about this. So let me bring our slides through. I'm going to build those out. So our projects, as you've just shown there, very often have a significant proportion of adoption and usage dependent on people adopting and using the new solution. So you can see example on screen, we've got that sat at 70%. We can then ask the follow-up question that you see on the right-hand side of the screen, particularly of our sponsors and project managers, but it could be of other people as well. How much are we investing in terms of budget, people, and energy to drive and support employee adoption and usage? And this is the disconnect that really plagues many organizational changes, that there is that disproportionate amount of energy being invested in driving adoption and usage relative to the actual contribution of adoption and usage to the overall ROI. So I think that I find this a hugely influential question and a great way to get conversation going about actually what are we bringing to the table as change practitioners, and what can we do to support that employee adoption and usage and really drive it forwards. And then that helps us to articulate why we might need more from budget, people, energy to help us do that. If we don't bring people along, there are additional costs and risks that we can encounter when the people side of change is ignored. These are some example project costs and project risks. These take away from the actual value the project delivers because we're not paying attention to adoption and usage. We can talk about the project risks, the costs and risks to the organisation, and the costs and risks if we don't deliver this change as was expected. If we don't get all of our individuals to that future state, we end up experiencing that Swiss cheese future state. And we can take this one step further. So I know that there is a lot of information on this slide, but it's well worth taking a look at in the PDF of the slides. This is the kind of thing you can print out or send to a project manager or a project sponsor to help drive the conversation around costs and risks, particularly which ones stem from poor adoption and usage, and which of them are we concerned about for this project. So you can see there's been some elements that have been highlighted on screen that give you an example of how you can utilize this. You know, when you get this printed, get a highlighter, work with that project manager or project sponsor to highlight the costs and risks that they might be most concerned about. The elements that are highlighted on screen include attrition, delayed timelines, loss of productivity, no results, resistance, and skepticism. The people side of change has real, meaningful bottom line impact, and aligning around results is about getting on the same page so that you, the project team, and us, the change team, are both here to deliver this change in the most, for the most value that we can possibly bring for the organization. So that's our first alignment, integrating around results. Our second dimension is about integrating around the people. It's about who does the work. So on the right-hand side, we have the most common governance models. Model A has the change management resource sitting on the team. And in the 11th edition of the research, it was used 33% of the time. Model B has change management and project management separate, but both are reporting to the sponsor, and it's used about a fifth of the time. Model C tends to be used for larger, more complex changes where we have a change management role sitting on the project team, then we have additional change support, whether that's a CMO or it's an additional communications support, extra training support, maybe a consultant that's coming in to support us with extra perspective and capacity, that just extra element that individuals might be bringing. That's what we're seeing in Model C. 17% of the 11th edition research respondents used Model C. Finally, Model D, we have change management and project management responsibilities being fulfilled by the same group of people or possibly the same person. 26% used Model D. So regardless of the model we choose, there are some really critical components that need to be in place. We need to have a clear definition of roles and responsibilities. Model D, as Kerry's kind of alluded to, can sometimes be tricky from that perspective. If it isn't someone's job, it's no one's job. That's a Tim Creasyism that I often hear him say. If it isn't someone's job, it's no one's job. So we can take it all on, but we need to make sure that we're not taking it all on in that sense. We need to be clear on how we're going to effectively collaborate and that element of cross training and understanding the change practitioners understanding why project management is essential and project managers understanding why change management is essential, and what each other is doing and what they're bringing to the table. I think that that's hugely helpful when we're doing this work and we're seeing this integration happen. But regardless of the structure we have, there are advantages we can leverage and risks we need to figure out how to mitigate. So what are the advantages of integrating and having the team be together? So Model A, Model C, and maybe Model D kind of align to these. We get that active communication and expertise. We get more successful integration and collaboration. Both the change management and the project management elements get to influence that decision making. We get more effective project planning because we get to work together in the sequencing of our activities. We get proximity, we get to engage because we're often sitting in the same meetings and tackling the same emails that are coming in. There are also advantages when change management sits outside of, but in support of the project management, like we saw in Team Structure B. We get higher levels of objectivity, that autonomy and independence. Sometimes we're able to get that direct access to the primary sponsor as opposed to being gated through the project manager. We get to have those direct connections and conversations with our sponsor about how they need to be more active and visible and participate more effectively and build that stronger coalition or communicate directly with those who are being impacted by the change. This also allows us to do a little more load balancing across multiple initiatives. So there's some flexibility about when and where we apply our resources. Advantages or challenges to both options are there, whatever governance model we pick. The most important thing is that as change practitioners, we have on our radar what those challenges are and what those advantages are and how we can utilise and work with those going forward. At the end of the day, regardless of which team structure we have, our sponsor access that you can see at the bottom there is critical to the success of the change. We know that there's a direct correlation between sponsor access and change success. between how much access we get to that sponsor and great sponsorship. So those that have the team structures, you have some data and some thoughts there. It's important that we're thoughtful and intentional about how we do it. So you've got those to take forward and consider. We've just been talking about 3 of the 4 core roles involved in change management in those team structures. So here we see that we've got those 2 sides to our core roles. There's our employee facing roles. This comes directly from the research. In terms of change, I want to hear from someone at the top and the person that I report into. So that's our sponsor and our people manager. But we also have those enabling roles. And that's where the change practitioner and the project manager begin to integrate, both in the way they work and how they effectively work together. So the change practitioner brings that complementary approach to how we bring our people forward and how we prepare the organisation for the solution. And the project managers bring that complementary focus on how we prepare the solution for the organisation by managing those that cost and scope and time. It's got this picture of this boy on a beach. This particular boy is actually Tim Creasy's son. And when Tim delivers this webinar, he talks about the fact that him and his wife came up with the phrase that you can see on screen. We're on the same team. When it came to approaching their parenting challenges, they used that phrase to remind one another that they're in this together, not against one another. Tim relates this to the same thing that we have to do as our work as change practitioners and project managers. We need to be on the same team to ensure that our change meets its objectives and outcomes and we get the return on investment that we set out to. So I think that's a really nice sentiment to take forward. We're on the same team. So far, we've talked about integration across the results dimension, and we've talked about integration across the people dimension. Our 3rd dimension is processes. So how do we integrate our plans? How do we align our timelines, sequence our tasks, make sure that we add in the people side and the technical side variables for it to be effective? So I've got a view here of what integration looks like conceptually when it's done effectively and well. We begin that change management at the beginning of the project. We're moving in lockstep to bring the technical and the people sides of the change together. But what we can also sometimes get is that we get that early entry, but no integration. So we have the technical side activities and we have the people side activities, but they're not working in unison. They're not being sequenced effectively and with response to and respect to what the other work is that's being done. We also have a late entry scenario where change management gets brought in to, quite frankly, put out fires and deal with resistance long after we went live, long after we should have been thinking about it in the first place. So we're driving towards that integrated approach that we're seeing on more towards the left-hand side, where we're both informing and influencing and responding to the technical and the people sides together. So I'm interested to hear back in pollev.com/CMC Global, which tools do you commonly integrate? So if you're using the Prosci methodology or other things, which tools do you commonly integrate? Seen comms plan coming up a lot, which is unsurprising. I'm pretty sure the research comes back with comms plan being pretty high on what we're seeing commonly integrated. Change impact assessments also in there. Stakeholder mapping, yeah. MS Office Suite using data APIs, workflow tools, process automation tools. Oh, that's good. So you've got that, yeah, the way that you're maybe handling some of the data as well. Project plans is also pretty high up there in the research, I'm pretty sure, when we're going to look at it later. Line management responsibilities during change. Yeah, building in that kind of that expectation that our line managers are managing the change with their teams. That can be, yeah, really helpful. Let's see what else we've got coming through. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for those of you that have taken part in that. You'll see when we look at the research very shortly, you'll see some alignment there with what most of you have mentioned. So one of the tools that I am going to talk about, which I didn't see on that poll, but where we can integrate our work, is ADKAR. So in times of organisational change, you have these pretty common milestones. We have a technical kickoff, we have a technical go live, and sometime in the future, hopefully our outcomes are realised as well. So to align the technical and the people sides, we want to ensure that one of the A's from the ADKAR model happens at go live, and that is going to be ability. So if I can get employees to ability when the project go lives, that's a prerequisite for successful change. So once I plot ability at go live, I can start to think about all the work I'm going to do to need to build the requisite knowledge, desire, and awareness before that. So let me build that out. There we go. And also, I'm going to think about the work I'm going to do to reinforce those individual behaviours by inputting reinforcement as well. So we're able to sustain those organisational outcomes. Now, the unfortunate reality is that too often we try to create a bunch of knowledge right before go live, and then we kind of do that wishing and hoping that it's just going to miraculously turn into ability. But the way we can align the people side and progress that technical side as well is by working to ensure that we get ability at the people level when we get to the go live at the project level. And we can do that for sequential and iterative change. So obviously I just showed you the sequential, but you've also got, if we're using iterative, let's say an agile approach, where we have a series of sprints followed by releases, we can begin to align ADKAR to that visualization. So on the bottom right, we've aligned the ability milestone with each release, recognizing that there's going to be significant work to build the knowledge ahead of ability at each release. But awareness and desire will tend to be built more at the initiative level. So whether it's sequential or iterative, we can align ability at go live to start to align the processes of the technical and the people sides of the change. In the Prosci methodology, we can take that one step further and also align key milestone dates. So you can see we've got a very simple table on screen that creates the structure of a calendar for how we're going to bring together the technical and the people sides of the change. So we sequence and align the processes and activities to make it happen. I've also got another example for you. And this example, it's been used to show how a process re-engineering effort could align with the people side activities. And as we move forward through initiating the project, scoping, planning, designing, and developing the solution, we're at the same time conducting assessments of readiness and risk, identifying and equipping and preparing our key managers and people leaders and senior leaders to step into their role. We start to communicate those early messages that employees want to hear early in that change journey. So this is what we can start to see integration looking like. So it's just an example there for you. I've got that data for you that I was talking about. So this is what the 11th edition of the research showed. So very much in line with what you were saying, communications plan, project plan, training plan, and the schedule are our most commonly integrated elements. This makes sense as our communication and training tend to be aspects of change management that are often funded for and considered even before we start thinking about that change management as a more holistic way to bring our people forward. Stakeholder analysis and assessments, the project challenges and adoption challenges align at the person who has to bring the change to life in the way they do their work. So it makes really good sense that the stakeholder and impact analyses are in place where we can bring together the technical side and the people side perspectives. Scope also helps us to establish what it is we're doing and for whom, and so unified or integrated scope helps us to provide additional clarity. Then we get into lessons learnt, the risk log, business case and readiness assessments. This is your opportunity to look for the times you can bring together the unified view of the technical and the people sides to help advance the change forward. There's no right or wrong answer about which tools to integrate. It's about which tools, when integrated, help us drive the best results and outcomes that we're looking to achieve. So these are the big probing questions we're going to leave you to start asking and answering for yourselves. How might we align the common objective, which is improving change outcomes? How can we set the stage so that change management and project management are looking at the same coin, but just two sides of that coin? What about the people? How might we create an effective partnership that has clear roles and responsibilities? Because we know that in the end, we are on the same team. We just need to make sure that we understand and get on that same team. In terms of process, how might we sequence our milestones, our tasks and our activities to work together so that we're moving in unison and the technical and the people sides are moving forward together? This is how we're able to prepare the organisation for the solution and prepare the solution for the organisation. When we effectively sequence the work we're doing to move these changes forwards, then ultimately we've got our tools. How might we be more efficient and effective by combining the tools we use, like the project plan, the timeline, the stakeholder analysis? So when we're asking and answering those questions, we can drive more successful change outcomes, because the data tells us, we know from our experience, change has both a technical side and a people side, and managing that change effectively in a complementary way is how we're going to get our results and outcomes. So I've got a final concluding thought for you. Especially in today's world, with the velocity of change we're experiencing, bringing together the technical and the people sides are going to be essential for us to be able to respond and react to the conditions we're all now living in. So that's really the bottom line that we're seeing here with what Kerry and I have been talking about today. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. I can see that we've got some questions that I suspect Reese will want to ask us in the chat pane. So Reese, I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Imogen. Yeah, what we'll do is, in the interest of time, I'll just get through the last little bit, and then those who want to stay for a little bit of a Q&A, should we do it that way?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, yeah, so just quickly, for those who do have to dip off, just the next webinar in the series, and the last in the series, in fact, is on Friday the 16th of June. So I think that's in 3 weeks' time. So if you come halfway through this current webinar series and you'd like to take a little bit of a step back, understand a little bit more about the Prosci methodology, then join us for that one on the 16th of June. Yeah, it'd be great to have you all, or as many of you there as possible. And then I do have one final poll to launch. You'll see on screen there now. So I will launch this poll. So if you want any more information, ask any more questions, extra resources, then just take your selection, and we'll do the necessary follow-up. So if you're interested in training for yourself or for your organization, or you just require a bit more resources, then yeah, just take your selection and we'll follow that up for you. Yeah, so as that's running then, yeah, I'll go through some of these questions. So the first one is, organizational change management is not understood by the organizations yet. How do you highlight when to be involved as an organizational change manager, or how to make them involve the OCM?
I've got a couple of thoughts on this. I think that this is possibly about getting to build a relationship with a project manager, some of the project managers that you're working with. There's some, if you're not a Prosci practitioner, there's some great articles on Prosci's website that you can use to help explain the value that you're bringing as a change practitioner, as a change manager, to the work that you're then doing. And I just start building those personal relationships. And from there, I think that then the word gets out. Oh, we did this really nice thing where it meant that more people adopted and actually used our solution. That's my personal view. I don't know if Kerry, you had any other thoughts on that one.
No, I totally agree with you. Start small, prove success, and that will get people interested. We always say, to roll out true change management takes change management. You need to launch it as a project. So if you can do a couple of little pilots and just show that success, it gives you that foot in the door.
Thanks. Okay, yes, the next question then. How to upsell the financial benefit of change management when statistics are not available at the onset of a project?
Oh, I'm happy to take that.
Yeah, go on.
Keep it simple. What happens if you go live with a project and nobody opts it? What does that look like? You know, you can think about, well, how much is it going to cost for us to relaunch it? How much are we going to have to add into that then? Or if it's a change that's sort of everybody has to adopt, what does poor adoption look like? Again, people using sort of minimal parts of a new way of working, people impacting customers, then start again, pull out the real impacts in there. So even if you don't have baselines at the moment, even if you don't have set targets for a project, you can still think about, well, what happens with that poor adoption? What's going to be the consequence of that? And take it as far as you can. Sound like a right scaremonger now, but
Well, I think it's that's that idea of costs of isn't it?
It
The
is.
work, having to redo stuff, that's the financial.
Exactly. And we're not the pink and fluffy change management people. We're focused in on that as well. Sorry, get a soapbox.
Okay, yeah, the engagement is brilliant today, everyone. So thanks very much for all your questions. Yes, the next one, how to handle communication plans when strategy team handles organization-wide change and is territorial, but change manager and IT team needs to communicate changes, project-related as well.
That's a big question, isn't it? In Prosci, we talk about, and there is a heavy emphasis on actually the preferred senders of messages of change, and maybe just sit down and look at the research on communications and the impact of communications coming from specific people, and again highlighting where perhaps those communications have come from the wrong people and not landed very well.
Okay, so how do you navigate the ADCAR timeline with cultural change where there's no exact go live deadline for ability?
With difficulty, I think. I think the cultural change can be quite hard anyway, because it's, you know, we've not got those, you know, financial aims and things like that.
And I think, if I can interject a bit,
Yeah.
I had this discussion with in a group that I taught the practitioner program to this week, and I think some of the issues we have with cultural projects is the idea that they have intangible benefits. They probably have some intangible benefits, but by setting a cultural project up in exactly the same way that we'd set any other project up, we must have clear outcomes that we want to achieve. We must have a way of actually assessing, measuring whether we've achieved those outcomes. And by having that in place, that gives you more of a framework so that you can apply ADCAR, that you can work systematically in something that, you know, every cultural project that I've ever been involved with, or with a cultural aspect, tends to be a long-term project. But having that structure is better for the organization, but it's also better for the people who are being expected to change ways of behavior, etc.
Okay, I think we've got 4 questions left, but I think 3 of them can probably be rolled into one. So the first one is, what about building change management into an agile project?
Funny you should ask. So there is a workshop. The great thing about the Prosci methodology is that it doesn't really matter how you're doing your project, your technical rollout then. You can adapt Prosci, you can adapt ADCAR to fit that. There is a one-day workshop all about the alignment of change management and agile or iterative approaches. You might be interested in that. And we run a webinar. Reese, I don't know if you can help. If there's one of those on record anywhere.
I believe there might be. I'll just double check on that. But yeah, there are plenty of resources around the website as well around that sort of topic around agile change management. So yeah, if you head to our website, we have a resources page there. Head there and see what we've got. If there isn't anything there, then your next step is to go to Prosci's website, prosci.com. They've got even more resources there that we haven't got as well. So if there's particular areas that you'd like to research, then yeah, I'd say either come to our website or indeed Nexum, nexum.eu if you come from Nexum today, or indeed, yeah, prosci.com. You'll find further resources on that topic. Yeah, and then the final question next, there's 3 more, but I think we can roll them into one. So, so it's all around measuring the impact of success around change management and how can we do that? What metrics, KPIs, that sort of thing.
So within our practitioner course, we talk about the 3 levels of performance that we track in change management. We track organizational performance, we track individual performance, and we track change management performance. The actual metrics will change, the type of measures will change based on the type of project, obviously. But yeah, I wish I could give you a quick answer on that, but come along and find out some more.
Great. Yeah, so that's it then in terms of questions. Yeah, thanks everyone.
There's a quick one, Reese, from Stuart in there.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
We don't edit that 10 aspects of change. There is a version of that slide in the deck that Reese has circulated. You're very welcome to use that, but we keep the Prosci tools as they are, if that's okay with you.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, and there's a question in the chat as well around sharing the presentation. So yeah, as Kerry mentioned there, you will all receive the slide deck from this morning. We'll be emailing that out to everyone early part of next week. So you'll receive a thank you for joining us for today, along with the slide deck, and also we'll point you to a previous recording of this session as well, if you'd like to recap some of the topics that way. So thanks everyone that's stayed on a bit longer to get through those questions. The engagement really is what makes these webinars what they are, so thanks very much for that, everyone. We do hope to see you on the next webinar, as I said, on the 16th of June. If you know any colleagues that also would be interested in learning a bit more about the Prosci methodology, then that is a perfect topic for them as well. A really nice introduction to the Prosci methodology. So hope to see you all there, along with as many of your colleagues there as possible as well. So yeah, have a great weekend, everyone. We hope to see you very soon. And thanks very much to Kerry and Imogen for your time this morning.
Our pleasure. Have a lovely weekend, everyone.